Can somebody please confirm that I'm audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir.
audible.
Okay, give me a second. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the online lecture organized by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. This class is for MA English first year students, and the course is course 2. It's titled American Literature. Yesterday, we covered majority of the last block titled Recent Trends from your course book. We talked about women's voices, and then we moved on to African American writing. We left out a small section called Jewish writing for today, so we will cover this topic today and then wrap it up. Today's class probably will be a shorter class than the regular classes. I'll try to leave you all by around 12:45, 12:50-ish, so you can have a good break before the next class. All right, let's now discuss Jewish American writing. When we say Jewish American writing, it is primarily in English, but there are also other or there are also writings in other languages, especially Yiddish. Yiddish is the one that's shown on the screen, but the language. And today we will confine ourselves to English writings because this is a course in MA Literature in English. Sorry. So we will confine ourselves to English, but then you'll have to understand that Jewish American writing doesn't only mean that writing that is in English. It can be in other languages also. Sorry, is somebody saying something? Surinder Gaul, can you please? Okay, yeah, yourself. Thank you. Okay, now before going into the Jewish American writing, I'll just make a couple of comments on the Jewish history itself. Now, Jewish history, if you look at it, it is filled with brutality and horrors, and Jews experience this not once, but then multiple times. Okay, the latest one, the biggest and latest one is the Holocaust from the Second World War, where over 6 million Jews were murdered by Hitler's army. That's the biggest or the latest one. But then that is not the only one. Jewish history has been riddled with troubles and brutality all over. But let's go a little back in history, even before the Holocaust and everything. Jewish immigrants started coming to America in the mid 17th century, around that time. Initially, they wrote memoirs. What are memoirs? Does anybody know what a memoir is? MEMOIR. Class 33.
It's a, it's a short story.
It's a short story. Okay.
Experiences.
Experience. Yeah, that's the keyword, Yasmin. Yeah, experience is the keyword, not the short story part, because that's why we have different words, memoir and then short story. Okay. A regular short story is not a memoir. Okay, it's a fiction. Memoir is a narrative written by the author about an important part of their life. Like they go in detail about a certain time period and then they talk about it. Okay, that's memoir. So because this is about the author's life, memoirs are filled with facts. Okay, so it's not fiction, it is facts. But you might ask, well, this is kind of same thing as autobiography thing, right? But there's a very basic difference between a memoir and an autobiography. That is, an autobiography spans an author's complete life until a certain point. Okay, it's for the complete life. Memoirs are more focused about a certain event or a time period, and the author gives details about that particular event or time period, not their whole life. Like in my life, if let's say I win an award, or let's say I won an award like 13 years ago, and then I'm writing a memoir about that, then that would only contain details about, the book or the painting or whatever I won the award for, and any details surrounding that particular event, not my whole life. I wouldn't start it with I was born in 19 something something. No, I wouldn't start it that way. An autobiography usually spans the whole life. Memoir spans only that particular time period. So anyway, The early writings were memoirs, and while this happened well before the 20th century, 20th century is when we have, Jewish writing that we can call Jewish American novels. Okay, that's when that was the peak. Let me say, put it that way, peak of Jewish American writing. This is where you will find people like Bernard Malamud, Saul Bellow, Norman Mailer, Philip Roth. These people, all these people wrote a lot during this time period. We will talk about two of these writers, Malamud and Bellow. I think your book talks a little bit about Norman Mailer. I'm not sure, but then we will talk about Malamud and Bellow. Okay. And we will look at Malamud in a little bit closer way because he's an interesting author. Malamud is the guy who is on your screen. He was born in 1914. This is if you remember, in one of the classes we talked about when World War started. This is the same year World War One started. Okay, he was born exactly at that time, which is a really bad time to be born. Why? Because when Malamud was in his teens, the world experienced this Great Depression. You remember I was talking about the 1920s, where the Great Depression happened, and the financial or the economic depression. So he was born at a really bad time. Then, immediately the World War happened, World War II happened. So you can see his experience of life is filled with like really horrific events. It was not a very good life he had. Uh, from a societal perspective, there was a lot of death and wars and everything happening in the society at that time. Now, he did not write much when compared to other writers we have seen earlier in the earlier units. If you see all the authors or writers that we've seen in the earlier units, they've produced humongous amounts of work. They have written short stories, they have written theory, they have written poems, they have written this, that, and everything. Malamud didn't write that much when compared to those people, but he wrote about very pertinent themes of his time. Okay. Now, what would be the pertinent themes of his time? They will be like, rootlessness. Or yesterday we were talking about alienation or abuse and suffering and death. And these are common in his writings. Okay. Like, because these themes were, like I said, very pertinent during his lifetime because he experienced all these things or he saw somebody experiencing all these things. Now, this suffering that I'm talking about doesn't necessarily have to be physical. Okay. It doesn't necessarily have to be, somebody coming and slapping somebody or something and the pain is physical. It doesn't have to be that way. It can also be mental suffering. So, why am I saying this? Because one of the famous quotes from Malamud is he said, all men are Jews. Okay. Jews, not the juice that we drink, Jews, the people. Okay. All men are Jews. Why does he say this? He doesn't mean that all men practice Judaism as a religion. We are all, people who should follow Judaism. He's not saying that. What he's saying is, in a metaphorical sense, what Malamud is saying is, this is the metaphor for the universality of this alienation and suffering. Just like Jews have gone through alienation and suffered, all men go through the same phases. Men, I don't mean just men, I mean all men and women go through the same phases. That is what he means by all men are Jews. He doesn't mean that we all follow the same religion. He means like Jews have been subjugated, like Jews have been, brutalized in the throughout the centuries, in the same way man himself would go through the same kind of experiences or similar kind of experiences. Now, he doesn't say this and just leave. Okay. He, in his works, if you read his works do give a hope for these characters. Okay. He doesn't say, life is horrible, life is this, life is that, life is suffering. And he doesn't end his works there. The way he structures his work is that at the end of the work, he gives some hope for these characters. All his characters have some kind of moral compulsion to make the very best of their lives within the constraints of life. He says, or his characters, the way they think is, okay, life has all suffering and life has all trouble, but then we also have to give our best to make life as much as better as possible. Okay. Now, Malamud wrote this novel called The Assistant, which is a story about this old guy called Maurice Barber. We will look at this particular um, novel in a little bit detail. This is a story about an old guy, like I said, called Maurice Barber, and a young guy called Frank Alpine. Okay, these are the two main characters of the story, and some other characters, minor characters, are there, or you know, I'm sorry. Maurice Barber now runs a grocery store, and one night he's robbed and beaten. And this Frank Alpine, this young guy, joins his store as an assistant later. And we will find out later in the novel that Frank was part of the gang of robbers that beat Morris. Okay, so he was part of this gang of people who came into the grocery store and bet Morris really badly. Now Frank joins Morris' shop with an intention to pay Morris back his money. So Frank realizes his mistake and then he says, "Well, I've beaten this old guy, so let me join his shop and then I will repay his money." So basically, Frank is repenting for what he has done. But while he pays Morris back, he also steals from him. Okay, so this becomes a cycle. Like, he will steal from him and then he will return it to him. He'll steal again and he will return. The excuse he gives himself is that the shop is running well because of Frank, because of this young guy. And he will someday return all the money to Morris. So he's like, because I'm here, the shop is running. So it's okay if I steal some and then I will return it someday. So it's okay. It's okay to do this stuff. Now, a lot of stuff happens in between. We will not go into the minor stuff that happens in the novel. But Frank gets caught by Morris while stealing money, gets thrown out of the shop multiple times, and then eventually Morris dies. The old guy dies. Frank returns to the shop, and the novel ends with Frank working in the store. Okay, he studies Judaism and then becomes a Jew. That's how the story is built. Now, I've concised the plot really, really shortly. Okay, I'm sorry. Really, really shortly, but then this is enough for you to understand what the major themes are. Guilt, of course, is a major theme because Frank, as a young guy, feels guilty because he's beaten up the older guy, and then he also wants to give the money back. So guilt, repentance, and then blaming and lies, deception. All these things are major themes. But there's also one very important theme, which is suffering, where Morris is suffering as well as Frank is suffering from their guilt. Morris is suffering from his old age, and then Frank is suffering from his guilt. So now, Malamud's other works also touch upon these themes, similar themes he has written. So, if you get a question in the exam, that can be in different ways. One way they can ask is write a short note on Bernard Malamud and his contribution to Jewish American writing. In that case, you will have to write about Malamud, and then he was born in 1914. He experienced world wars, and then he experienced the Great Depression when he was in teens. So all these things, rootlessness and suffering, and all these things were themes in his works. That way, the answer should be written. Another way is probably going specifically into the novel, and then they can ask you look at Frank's role or Frank's character in The Assistant, and then give your views on him, or Morris's character, and then give your views on him. So it can be either way. So my whole point is, if you know who Malamud is, if you know when he was born, and then what he has gone through in life, it will be really easy for you to look at the themes that he wrote on, because his themes were very reflective of what he was going through in his life. Okay, one specific type of character we have to look at in general in Jewish literature as well as Jewish American literature is something called Shlemiel. Okay, the spelling is Schlemiel. It's there on the last bullet point on your screen. It's a particular type of character. This character type is not, again, specific to Malamud's writing, but most Jewish American writers have this character. Most of the works have this, somebody who is a Shlemiel. Now, Shlemiel is a Yiddish term that means awkward, stupid, incompetent person. Okay, somebody who is stupid, somebody who is incompetent, that kind of person. Every work, or not every work, most of the works, Jewish American works, have this kind of character, somewhere or the other. This character type is used to bring in usually humor into most works. Now, if you see, like I said, the whole themes or the major themes of his work and most American or Jewish American authors around his time was suffering and then, very depressing kind of themes. So Shlemiel is that one ray of humor, hope that they have put in for, some kind of humor. So anyway, remember that this character type is used not by other Jewish writers, not just Malamud, but then, other Jewish writers too. Okay. Any questions on Bernard Malamud so far? Let me quickly check the chat. All men go through difficulties. Yes, Yasmin, that's right. And then you'll have to remember, when we say men, we are not specifically talking about the sex man. We are including female and men, male both. Okay, we are including mankind. I know it's not an inclusive term, but then that's what we mean. We don't mean specifically only men go through difficulties and women don't. Like we've seen yesterday, Women go through a lot more than that meets the eye. Okay. Any questions on Bernard Malamud so far? Okay, good. Give me 1 second. I just have to uh, take a screenshot. I'll just do that and then continue. Okay, let's move on to Bellow. Bellow again is a very famous Jewish American author. One of his most characteristic that is different from others is he's won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1976. He was again born in 1915, just 1 year after Bernard Malamud was born. Bellow won the Nobel Prize, like I said, in 1976. His works had themes that were surrounded by Jewish life, Jewish identity. Bellow saw a lot of issues with modern civilization. So that also came across in his works very, very predominantly. He was fascinated by America and then the experience that he had in America. So that came across as a theme also. So his themes are a little bit different from that of Malamud. While his themes also talked about suffering and identity and all these things, he was more fascinated by this new land of America for him. So his most famous works are listed on your screen. Tangling Man, The Victim, The Adventures of Augie March and Herzog. We're not going to go into these works. But all these are novels, but he has also written short stories. He wrote one play, he wrote non-fiction work also. We will probably just take a look, very quick look at one work, The Adventures of Augie March, very quickly, just to do what we have been doing all along in these classes, just to see what the themes are. And this novel is about Augie March, this guy called Augie March, and it is set during the Great Depression. Like I said, Great Depression is the economic depression of the late 1920, late 1920s, so 1929 to 1930s. Okay. Now, this particular story describes Augie March's growth from childhood to when he attains maturity. Okay, this guy Augie lives with his mom, his brother, his name is Simon, and then they all live in the bad part of Chicago. Okay, and Augie goes from one situation to another. He takes up jobs, takes up women. This guy is a womanizer. So now this guy's life seems to be partly self-made. He has a plan and sometimes just comes around by chance. So there's a lot of uncertainty in his life. Also, his life goes from rich to rags and all in between. So at one point in the novel, he is very rich and then suddenly he becomes poor. Suddenly then he earns money. And so there's a lot of excitement also in his life. At one extreme, he is nearly adopted by a rich couple. Okay, and then this guy is spoiled because he gets a lot of money by that adoption, and then he gets spoiled. And at the other extreme, he struggles for existence. He steals books just to eat. He will steal books and then sell them and then eat. And so it's completely opposite. He experiences everything from riches to rags completely. Now, this Augie gets involved with a string of different women. Like I said, he has multiple women in his life. He gets dumped. Women break engagements with him. Women break up with him all the time. He goes through a lot of breakups. Again, a lot of stuff happens, and the novel ends with him somewhere in France getting involved in some shady business deals. Okay, so the main thing that comes across is even though it's a life of one person, you will see that this life is not stable at all. It's the most unstable life that you will see. Like I said, it goes from riches to rags, rags to riches, goes around with multiple women. There is no stability in life. And then, the novel ends with this guy going to France and then getting involved in some kind of shady business. So he still has not changed. Okay, so the author leaves us with, that mystery of what happens to Augie March. Anyway, you look at this novel, then you will notice that Augie starts off as a typical quote unquote American hero. Okay. Poor family, struggling, and then, this is how typical American heroes are portrayed in novels and works. They come from a poor family, struggling, and then suddenly they make it big, and then they become adventurers or they become heroes. But this story doesn't end like a typical American hero story, where the hero is successful and lives happily ever after. That is not how the story ends. Okay, like I said, this fellow goes and then gets involved in a shady business. One theme that comes out repeatedly in this novel is search for identity. I think it was Sujata or somebody mentioned yesterday something about identity crisis. Okay, this comes out repeatedly in this novel. And what happens is Augie encounters multiple people and then he encounters troubles. He's adventurous, takes up too many jobs. He has too many women in his life, but also he escapes from all these things and then has this search for self, formation of an identity. So he's always going through this identity crisis, and then he is always looking inside for finding out who he is and trying to determine his own fate. Okay, he tries to determine his own fate by finding out what his identity is. Now he is tempted by these physical and mental temptations, of course, but he resists being a slave of either of these. So he does have these temptations that life throws at him, but then he is also resisting these and then tries not to be a slave of these. He experiences like we discussed yesterday, alienation of man. That is also another theme. For Augie, the family has lost its role in, being together. It's not the happy family that he's talking about, but, people or man specifically has to look for other ways to reconcile himself with the world around. It's not through family. That's the thing that comes out very prominently across in this particular novel. Anyway, we will leave it at that. Your course book, I think, has a small biography of Bello and lists more of his work. So please take time to go through it. It will help you. Okay. Any questions? Let me quickly go to the chat and then see if somebody's saying something. Okay. No questions. Can I continue?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, how do you answer questions from this unit? They can ask you, like I said, specific to a work, and then they can say what are the major themes of the assistant. Now, this is easy as well as tough. Why? Because if you know what the assistant is and then who wrote it and what are the major themes, then you can easily answer this question. But if you don't know what the assistant is, then there is no way you can answer this question. Okay, so that is why I repeated multiple times. Please read the whole book at least once, so that even if you don't know the whole story, you will remember what the assistant is about. And if you can remember that, then you can at least attempt the question. Okay. Then discuss the themes, major themes of Jewish fiction. We have already talked Jewish. Sorry, it has to read as Jewish American fiction, not Jewish fiction. That's a typo there. And it should include, ruthlessness, alienation, and search for identity crisis, assimilation, that kind of stuff. Okay. There's one more, I think, writer listed in your book, Adrienne Rich. We will not talk about Adrienne Rich, but I do want to make a point, though. Now, Rich was not only poet, but then she was also a feminist. So just like yesterday, we talked about Toni Morrison and Zora Neale Hurston, I think, in women's voices. We said, they can be put in women's voices as well as African American writers. We can put Adrienne Rich in Jewish poets as well as women's voices. Okay. The reason why I keep mentioning these things is because even if you know about Adrienne Rich or Toni Morrison, or for that matter, Zora Neale Hurston, it doesn't matter if the question is about women's voices or African American literature or, Jewish literature, you can still write something about it. If it's a short answer, you will have enough information about, these people. So authors are really important. Okay. Just a quick recap questions. Who wrote The Assistant? Anybody? Whose work is The Assistant? Okay. The second one is Herzog was written by, and that's,
Bernard Malamud.
yeah. Bernard Malamud is the assistant. Herzog was written by Saul Bellow. And when did Saul Bellow win the Nobel Prize? It was in 1976. Okay, these are just, again, these are not to test you. These are to basically make sure that we are all on the same page. All right. That kind of sort of wraps up the Jewish American literature part also. So that wraps up the block. But somebody asked yesterday for some important questions. Like I keep saying, there is nothing called important questions, but I can list some of the important topics you need to be well versed with in your American literature paper. So on your screen, there's your contents page from your book. I'm hoping that everybody has your book and then you have access to it and then you're reading it at least once completely. But I've repeated this multiple times. Unit 1 is an extremely important one, not only for the exam, but also to understand American literature in general. If you're not reading Unit 1, then there is no point in reading any of the other units. So please, I urge you to read Unit 1 thoroughly, not just a cursory read or anything. Please make sure that you read the major themes thoroughly. Only if you understand Unit 1, you will understand rest of the book, or else it just doesn't make any sense. Okay. So unit 1 is a very important unit. And then the first units of every block. So unit 4, 9, and 14 are important. Okay, introduction to fiction, introduction to American poetry, and introduction to drama. These are the first units of each of the blocks. And from block 5, unit 18 and unit 20 are very important. Women's voices in African American literature. There have been questions that are coming from Jewish writing in the past, but then most... is somebody talking, or if you're not, then can you please go on mute?
First unit of every block, unit 1, unit 4, 9, 14,
14.
18.
Yes, 18 and 20.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what does it mean that these are important? That doesn't mean the questions will be only asked from these units. These are important from two different perspectives. One is from an exam point of view, and the other one is from understanding American literature. Okay, you as students of literature, or we as students of literature, should not be writing the exam only to pass it. That especially at a master's level, right? You're doing a master's in English, not, you know, a smaller degree. It's a very big degree to get. So please, I will urge you to actually go through the book. Please don't depend on, material, external material or whatever. That is not how you should be writing this exam. This exam should be written by actually understanding the topics. Okay. The reason why I'm saying this is because if you read it once and then you actually understand it, you will remember it for a long, long time, and you will you can probably answer any question that comes on American literature, not only on MA, but then otherwise also. Okay. But from an exam perspective, I can give you only one advice, which is you can afford to not study maybe one block. That's it. Okay. What I mean by that is you don't need to be an expert at every other block, but you should have good knowledge to write a relevant answer. For example, if somebody does not like poetry, let's say, let's say I don't like poetry, and then I think that the block on poetry is complicated. There is too much of poems, there's too much symbolism, there's too much figurative language. Then just have a basic idea of the block and leave it. You don't have to be an expert on that block, but you get this opportunity with only one block. You choose one block in 5 blocks and leave that block with a basic idea. Okay, you can probably leave poetry related or whatever. Why? Why am I saying this? Because there will be internal choice in your exam, and you can probably get by not studying one block in the 5 blocks and still, get a good mark. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm not saying don't read one block. I'm just saying if you are, I don't know, if you have time crunch, if you don't want to read a certain part of it, as if it's too boring, whatever the reason might be, you can only afford to lose one block. Whatever block. You don't skip the introduction block. Okay, that's important. But fiction, poetry, drama, recent trends, you can skip one block, but still pass the exam. Why? Because you will have internal choice in the exam. I will not prefer this route. I will not prefer you doing this. But if you have some reason to do it, that is my advice. Okay, so basically I'll repeat it. In the 5 blocks, you need to have good enough knowledge on 4 blocks, and 1 block you can just browse. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay, then somebody asked me about notes. Okay, I can give you very quick notes. These notes should be revision. These notes should not be the notes for studying. Okay, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but then you will have to read your course book. There's a lot of effort that goes into writing these course books, and then these course books are really good. So you have to read the course book once, but then just in like maybe 2-3 days before the exam, if you want to browse through, the notes on your screen will help you. I'm going to send the notes to you on the chat right now so that everybody has access. We have 46 people on this call. I am not part of the WhatsApp group that you people have. So if somebody can do me a favor and then send these things in the WhatsApp group, then that's great. Let me very quickly send you the notes. Okay, so the first one is American literature periods, which basically talk about the time periods of American literature across centuries. So can somebody please unmute themselves and then let me know when you all get the PDF? You can download the PDF from the chat.
Yes, sir. One PDF is here.
Okay. Okay, the second one should also be there. And let me very quickly see if I can find the hold on for once. I'll just
Yes, sir. Both are downloaded.
okay, perfect. Hold on, give me a second. I will send the links also. Okay, that's one link. I just sent it. And then the second link. Okay. What these are going to do is give you a very, overview of American literature. And it will talk about, or like I said, it will serve more as a revision than anything else. So, okay, yeah. The first one talks about timeline. It talks about, oh, excuse me. It starts from 1607 and then talks about Age of Faith or the colonial period. We talked about this in our classes. We talked about how religion played a major role. And then it talks about the major writers in that particular time period and what have they written. And then it goes on to Age of Reason and Revolution. We talked about that also. We talked about Franklin, Jefferson, Paine, and everybody. Then we come to the 1800s where Romanticism was in vogue. Then it talks about characteristics of Romanticism, then major writers. Then after the Romantics, the Transcendentalists came into picture, talks about Whitman, talks about Emily Dickinson. These are all the authors that are there in your book. Okay. Then we come to the end of 19th century, which is 1865 to 1915. Then we talk about, the Civil War at the end of the century. Then we talk about Mark Twain. Then comes the modernist period, which is the early 20th century. Talk about Ernest Hemingway, Faulkner, both of whom we talked about in the classes. Then it ends with the contemporary period. And then, like I said earlier, contemporary basically means anything after 1945, after the end of the World War II. So it talks about, the beat poetry and the beat writers. It talks about the confessional poets, Sylvia Plath, Anne Sexton. We talked about them yesterday. Then we talked about, Joyce Carol Oates, how she's the dark woman of American letters. And it ends there. Okay. The first PDF is about 9 pages. And then it will give you a very quick overview of what American literature has gone through over centuries. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Second PDF talks about the similar kind of content, but from a themes perspective. Okay. It talks from the Puritan times, from 1600s to 1700s. It starts again from there. And then it talks about, what is the historical context of that particular time period and what are the major themes that were there in that particular time period. It goes from there to same thing, age of enlightenment, age of reason, age of revolution, age of this, age of that, whatever. Okay, it goes from one century to another century, and it ends with the contemporary period of American literature. And then it talks about, what is the content of that particular time period, what is the style of authors, and what is the themes, what are the themes, and the historical context. Okay. Again, this is about 10 pages. So in total, I'm giving you about 19 pages of notes, which should cover pretty much everything that we have talked about. Okay. Okay. Can everybody confirm that they have downloaded the PDFs? Yes.
Yes, sir.
It'll
Yes,
be
sir.
there in the
Download.
chat, but then right after the meeting is ended, they will vanish. So in case any of your friends have not downloaded or whatever, then just share these two PDFs and then these links for American literature. And that should kind of sort of cover everything. If you have to go back to any of the classes and then, look at them, you are more than welcome to go to the YouTube channel and then see if you can find these classes, and then you can do a kind of sort of a replay of these classes and then see. Okay. Okay. Before we end, I think it was Samira who asked me if I can talk a little bit about the Rasa theory from the literary criticism paper, because you didn't have any classes for literary criticism, online classes. Is that right? Samira, are you on the call?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I got an approval from Dr. Madhuri to talk about it, but I can only talk about it for a few minutes. Is that okay? Are you still interested in the Rasa theory, or can we just, skip it?
No, no, please.
Yes, sir, we want it. Please say.
Okay.
Please go on, sir, please.
Okay. Very quickly, in about 10 minutes or so, I will finish this thing. But give me 1 second, okay? I'll be right back. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. The chat has some things. Hold on. You Somebody asked a question. Okay, MYPC says, is Yiddish and Hebrew the same or different? Hebrew is a Semitic language, which basically means it's an older language. I think your name is Vishnu, MYPC. But Yiddish is a more modern language. It has this influence of German and Aramaic and that kind of thing. So while they are in the same language group or a bigger language umbrella, they are two different languages. I hope that answers your question. Okay, Rasa theory. Hold on. Okay, this has nothing to do with American literature. This is only because you don't have your literary criticism classes, online classes, offline classes. I'm assuming that they have been done, and somehow Rasa theory was missed in those classes. That's why I'm trying again. I'm not really very good at Indian aesthetics, but I'll try to explain what Rasa theory is. Okay. Now, this theory is very important in Indian aesthetics. Now, what is Indian aesthetics? Can anybody tell me? You have read literary criticism. So what are aesthetics? What does the word
That
aesthetics
deals with beauty. Beauty.
deals with beauty? Okay. Preeti says art. Okay. Anything else? What is aesthetics? Beauty, Yasmin, you mean beauty of a work? That's what you mean. Not beauty like a beautiful woman or a handsome man. Not that beauty, right? You're talking about the beauty of a work.
Beauty, the culture of a particular country.
A culture of particular country. Okay, okay. Okay, Indian aesthetics basically refers to this framework developed in ancient India to understand and appreciate arts. Okay, this is a framework using which you can understand Indian art and appreciate the art. Okay, particularly focusing on literature, music, dance, paintings, visual arts, sculptures, this kind of stuff. So when you look at a painting, how do you appreciate it? I mean, what in the painting will you see? And then what is the effect of that painting? All this is discussed in Indian aesthetics. Now, specific to rasa theory, this is part of this framework. Okay, it's part of the Indian aesthetics framework. Around 2nd century BC, there is this guy called Bharatamuni. He proposed this rasa theory first. Okay, he wrote a book called or a work called Natya Shastra, and rasa theory is part of Natya Shastra. Now, Natya Shastra is not just rasa theory. This is a huge work which has like 36 chapters or whatever units or something. Okay. Rasa theory is in chapter 6 of Natya Shastra. Like Natya Shastra as a whole will talk about a lot of stuff. I mean, it will talk about everything starting from, how a room should be organized for conducting a drama until, what kind of makeup should everybody have, that kind of stuff. It covers everything. But Rasa theory is specific to chapter 6. That is where he has propounded this theory. Now, this theory was later discussed by many other authors. It was when Bharata Muni proposed this theory, it was mostly applicable to drama. Why? Because drama not only contains, if you look at the genre of drama, it not only contains dialogues, but also, it'll have music, it'll have visual effects, it'll have dance, it'll have setting of the scene, it'll have a lot of other stuff, right? So it has a lot of these modalities, quote unquote, which are built into drama. So if you see, these are still major components of many art forms of today, right? Like if you take cinema, for example, it also has dialogue, music, visual effects, dance, setting the scene, all these things, right? So rasa theory is applicable to current day as it was applicable in the ancient times. Okay, it's not just because it's an old theory doesn't mean that it is not applicable in the contemporary times. My whole point is it was applicable in 2nd century BC. It is applicable in a bigger way right now. Okay. Okay. Now, Bharatamuni propounded like 8 rasas initially. Later, an additional rasa was added. It was added by Abhinavagupta somewhere in the 10th, 11th centuries, I think. And they became Navarasas. Okay. We as contemporary people would never talk about 8 rasas. We always talk about 9 rasas. And then we call them Navarasas. Okay. But when Natya Shastra was written, it only had 8 rasas. But all this is good. But what does rasa mean? I mean, this is all fine, 8 rasas, 9 rasas, and whatever, but what does rasa mean though? It's a little complicated. The concept itself is a little complicated, but I'll try to explain it in simpler terms. The regular meaning of rasa is like juice or, essence of something. Okay. Yasmin, feeling. Hold on to that thought. Okay. Hold on to that thought, and then we will come back to your comment. Like I was saying, the regular meaning of rasa is juice or essence of something. Okay. Now, if you really Sujata says taste also. Good. Yes, taste also. What Bharatamuni says is rasa is something that is relished. Okay, which is going back to Sujata's comment about the taste. Whatever is relished is rasa. This is different from emotions. This is different from feelings. This is different from anything that we know. Okay, this is something else. This is the effect of something. What are these somethings? I will tell you about 3 things. Okay, one is called vibhava, one is called anubhava, and then one is called vyabhichari. Okay, what are vibhavas? Vibhavas are something that cause a rasa. What are anubhavas? Anubhavas are the consequences. We will take an example and then go through with this, but anubhavas are the consequences of that rasa. And vyabhichari is the transitory emotions, or they are the temporary emotions that we go through. Combine all these 3, put them together, and that is what will cause rasa. Or they cause sthai bhavas and then they cause rasa. Okay. Now, what is bhava? Vibhava, anubhava. What is bhava? Bhava basically is emotion. Okay, this is a Sanskrit term. And bhava basically is an emotion. And things that these emotions are conveyed as are anubhavas. What does that mean? If I am sad right now, the sadness is the bhava, right? I am feeling sad. That sadness is the bhava. How do I express this? Let's say I cry to express the sadness. Okay, I'm very sad and I cry. This crying is the anubhava. Okay, the consequence is the anubhava. What is vibhava? Whatever has caused my sadness. Like I might have heard that somebody close to me met with an accident or whatever happened, some sad thing happened in life. That is why, the triggering point is the vibhava. Okay, I will repeat this. Vibhava is the cause, the triggering point, that is the vibhava. Okay, whatever I am experiencing or, the sadness is the bhava. How I'm expressing this by crying, that is anubhava. Okay, you throw these things together, they will create something called sthayi bhava, which is a permanent emotion, which in turn causes rasa. Okay, we will see how this is important to us. Why are we talking about, such complicated bhava, vibhavas and all? We'll see. So in this particular case, when I was talking about the example, right, the shoka is the bhava. Okay, shoka basically, I'm hoping that most of you have an idea of what shoka or what these Sanskrit words mean, because they are pretty much similar in most South Indian languages. So shoka is the bhava, me crying is the anubhava, and then whatever the triggering point is, that is the vibhava. Okay, does everybody understand until now? I'll repeat this. In this particular case, the example that I gave, shoka is the bhava because I'm sad. Me crying is the anubhava because that's the consequence. And whatever the triggering point is, that is the vibhava. That's the cause. Okay. I'm glad MYPC changed his name to his real name. Thank you. Sadness, rise of emotions. Rasa means expression. Okay. Rasa means expression. Again, Rajni, hold on to that thought. We will see whether that's right or not in a few minutes. Okay. Now, when these three things are put together, they cause the rasa. And what is that rasa that they are causing? They are causing a rasa of karuna. But then we will see why it is causing karuna. But now let's not go into the complicated topic of how bhavas are divided. They are divided into sthayi bhavas, vichari bhavas and all. Let us not go there. Okay, that is not part of our discussion. Our part is basically trying to understand what is rasa in the first place and what are the navarasas. Now, before that, I just want to make something clear. Bhava and rasa are not the same. Okay, they are two different things. How? If you look at the difference, or if you want to list the differences, bhavas refer to the internal emotional states of the characters. Okay, what are the internal emotional states of the characters? Like, let's say if you take me and then I am saying sadness, that is my bhava. Okay, rasas refer to the aesthetic experience felt by the audience. Okay, so if I tell you that I'm sad, how does that make you feel? What is that have, or my sadness, what effect does that have on you? That's the rasa. Okay, so you'll have to really remember the difference between bhava and rasa. They are not the same. Bhavas are not emotions. Rasas are not emotions. Rasas are what are caused by the emotions. Okay, the second difference that I would like to bring about is bhavas are expressed through the performance, whereas rasas are experienced by the audience who are actually, witnessing the performance. Okay, the rasas basically, bhavas are expressed by, like if you see the picture on your screen, the lady who is, making the dance postures is actually expressing bhavas, and whatever you feel, so seeing those, that performance is the rasa. Does that make sense? Before I go to the nine rasas, you'll have to be clear about this distinction between bhavas and rasas. Does everybody understand this? Yes? It's like Okay, Preeti says yes. Okay, I'm assuming others also are saying yes because I don't know. So anyway, very quickly, we will talk about the 9 rasas. Like I said, 8 were listed by Bharata Muni in his Natya Shastra. And then the others were, or the last rasa was added later in the 10th, 11th century. Okay. The first one on your screen is Shringara Rasa, which is the rasa. This is tied to the emotion of love. And love, I'm not talking about romantic love alone. It is also, playful love, erotic love, romantic love, also spiritual love, like, the love between the God and then the person who is praying. All these, okay. That is the Shringara Rasa. And then usually we try to, in Indian, context, we usually bring about this Shringara Rasa when we talk about Krishna and Radha's love in Indian classical dances like Bharatanatyam or Odissi, right? When they're talking about Krishna and Radha, this is the rasa that they try to bring about, Shringara Rasa. Second one is Hasya Rasa. You can see that Hasya, basically, it means, humor or laughter. So this is evoked through like comic situations, funny dialogues, satire, that kind of stuff. Now, most movies, if you see these days, have this hasya rasa through situational humor. Okay, so you laugh, then that's the consequence of hasya rasa. Then there's the karuna rasa, karuna, right? Third one. Yeah, karuna rasa, which represents, karuna basically means compassion or empathy. You are showing compassion or empathy. Now, where does this come from? It comes from, portrayal of sorrow or somebody else's suffering or tragic situation. So this is why I said, remember the example that I gave? When I am filled with sorrow, when I am sad, that generates karuna rasa in you. Basically, you think, oh, sorry, I mean, sir is feeling bad. See, that you feel empathetic towards me. You feel compassionate towards me. That is the karuna rasa. Okay. Usually, in the Indian context, we talk about Karuna Rasa when we talk about, Sita's situation in Ramayana where she's sitting under a tree and then, alone. Usually, because she's very sad, she's taken away from her husband and then Hanuman has not yet come. And all in this situation, that Karuna Rasa comes. Or coming to Mahabharata, Draupadi's plight when, she's being, her sari is being pulled and then, her husbands have lost her in the play of this thing. And that's where, this Karuna Rasa comes in the audience, where you're seeing that and then you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, Draupadi is going through such a plight. I mean, what poor situation she's going through. That is where, the Karuna Rasa comes out, or that is portrayed. Then the next one is Raudra. Raudra basically means anger and fury. So when it is expressed through, intense dialogues where, somebody is very angry and then there is aggressive movements, aggressive fighting and that kind of stuff. From a mythology perspective, you will see this in, goddess Kali killing Mahishasura. You remember, you know that, paintings or pictures or sculptures or whatever you have seen of the goddess killing Mahishasura. She's not in a peaceful state, right? She's in this Raudra state where she's very angry on Mahishasura and then wants to kill him. That's the Raudra Rasa. Then there is the Veera Rasa, which is the heroism and courage. So whatever depicts heroism in any particular art form. Now, what you'll have to remember is this is not only for dance. Even though dance brings these out very well, these rasas are not just given to you by dance. They can be given to you by portraits, they can be given to you by paintings, they can be given to you by modern art forms like cinema. Anything can give you these rasas. It's not just dance. Okay. Okay, Veera Rasa, Veera signifies heroism and courage. It celebrates, bravery, somebody being brave and, some good over evil. If there's a triumph of good over evil, then that's the Veera. Again, going back to Ramayana and Mahabharata, it's like Rama's courage in Ramayana or, Arjuna, going against his cousins in Mahabharata. All this is Veera, which is, heroism. Now, the next one is Bhayanaka Rasa. Bhayanaka basically means fear or terror, right? It's Bhayanak. That's what it means. It is brought through like scary settings. If we look at movies, then the horror ones are the Bhayanaka Rasa related ones. And what they do is they invoke the dread in the viewer or the audience. The audience feel a dread in their heart. That is what is Bhayanaka Rasa. And then Bibhatsa Rasa basically is where you have disgust. Basically, you don't whatever you see, it's disgusting. That's the Bibhatsa rasa. And this is brought in by using, unpleasant imagery or something like that, where, if you're seeing a movie and then somebody kills somebody and then there's a lot of blood or something, that doesn't actually bring dread into it. It actually brings some kind of disgust into you, most people. Okay. That's the Bibhatsa rasa. Bibhatsa is directly related to something called Jugupsa, but we will not go there. Okay. Now, this basically in classical Indian texts, sometimes, we have, decaying of the body or, evil characters or monsters. They are represented through this Bibhatsa rasa. The next one is Adbhuta rasa. Adbhuta basically means wonder. In Telugu, it's called Adbhutam only or something like that. But, that's basically wonder or surprise or amazement. Okay. Now, where does this come from? It comes from usually supernatural beings or, depiction of, an angel coming down from the skies. That is, that brings in this Adbhuta rasa. Okay. Now, the last one, like I said, was added later, which is called Shanta rasa. And Shanta rasa represents peace. Now, Shanta rasa is a little complicated. Why? Because even though it's not just peace. Okay. It is evoked in general through like calm music or gentle movements. And then, some kind of meditative state, that kind of stuff. Okay. That's Shanta rasa. But then, this is, you see where, if somebody is in a movie, if you see a saint or like a Rishi or Muni or somebody sitting, they are always usually in this Shanta state. And then, they have this Shanta rasa in them. Now, what makes this rasa a little special is because one, it was added later. So why didn't Bharatamuni think about this? And then the other one is what the actual person who has brought this, who is Abhinavagupta, what did he say about this? What he says about this, the metaphor that he uses is, imagine a necklace, okay, necklace of pearls or whatever it is, diamonds or whatever it is, a necklace. And then, if the rasas, all the 8 rasas are the individual pearls or necklace on the necklace or diamonds on the necklace, Shanta rasa is the thread that goes through every single rasa. Okay, you have to imagine this actually. So Shanta rasa basically is the thread that kind of sort of looks at every single of the other rasas or the 8 rasas. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
See the messages. Okay, rasa means emotions. Okay. Asiya is saying, what is explain the difference between rasa and bhava one more time. Okay, I'll do that. 1 second, let me read the whole chat. Experiencing the expressions of the answer is rasa. That's one way of putting it, Asad. But let me put it in a slightly different way. Okay. The effect of the expressions of the dancer is rasa. Okay, the experience is your individual experience, but the effect of that expression of the dancer is rasa. So the performer knows most times what rasa they are going to instill in the viewer. It's not some random thing. It is, they know, right? Like the dance moves that are on your screen, the performer knows exactly what rasa is going to be generated in. Okay, so and that is what you experience. Okay. Uh, Okay. Bhayanaka versus Bibhatsa difference, sir. Okay. Yeah. So 2 things. One, you wanted to know what is the difference between rasa and bhava, right? I mentioned 2 basic differences. One is bhava is, it refers to the internal state of somebody or the characters. Okay. Let's imagine somebody is performing a dance. Okay. What is the internal emotional state of that actor or actors? That is the bhava. Okay. Like if you see on the screen, whatever she's doing, those are the bhavas. Okay, whatever she's doing means basically whatever she's trying to convey. Now, whatever she's trying to convey, whatever that effect is, that's the rasa. So you are watching, let's say somebody performing a dance or a musical or whatever. Whatever the internal emotional states of the characters or actors, those are the bhavas. And while the rasa basically is whatever you're experiencing as a viewer. Let me go back to my original example. If I'm sad, sadness is the bhava. Okay. But if you look at me and then say, oh no, sir is very sad. Oh, I feel so bad for him. I feel so empathetic to him. That is your rasa. And that rasa is called karuna rasa. Okay. You have karuna rasa. I have the bhava of sadness. All right. I hope that this kind of explains what the difference is. Another difference is bhavas are expressed through performance, whereas rasas are experienced by the audience as a result of witnessing the performance. Okay, so bhavas are from the performer, rasas are on the part of the experiencer or whoever the viewer or audience is. Okay. Okay, the second question was about Bhayanaka and Bibhatsya. Okay, Bhayanaka is fear and terror. Okay, whenever you see the Bhayanaka, if you see the thing on your screen, the in the last line, you see Bhayanaka, right? Where the lady who is performing is actually putting in a facial expression that says she's scared. It evokes this fear and terror or something. That's Bhayanaka. Okay. Bibhatsa is a little different. Okay. This conveys disgust or repulsion. Okay. What does that mean? It means, with an example, let's say there is a horror movie that you're watching. Okay. And then there is jump scare. Let's say you're just watching the movie and then there is a room and suddenly there is a ghost or something jumps at the screen. That is Bhayanaka, where it evokes fear and terror. Okay. What is Bibhatsa? Let's say the ghost comes and then, it kills somebody. And then there is all blood and red stuff all over your screen. And then, the internal organs of that body are coming out and whatever. This is not fear. This is something called, in Sanskrit, it's called jigutsa. But then I think in Telugu or other languages also, it's the same
Violence.
thing. Disgust, basically. Sorry, Uma, what was that?
Violence.
There is violence, but then what is it? What is it that you are experiencing? You're not experiencing fear, right? Because you know it's not happening to you. It's happening to somebody else. But what are you experiencing? It's called jigupsa, where you get these, goosebumps or whatever you call on the skin. You have these, bumps when you see certain things where you think, yuck, this is so disgusting. That is different from fear, right? Who asked the question? I think Yasmin, it was you who asked the question. Does that make sense, Yasmin? Okay, good. Nasty. Yes, yes. It looks very nasty to you. I mean, you feel like, this is so disgusting. So that's the difference between Bhayanaka and this thing. Okay, somebody's asking difference between sympathy and empathy. That's an English question. I think Yasmin responded to it. Yeah, sympathy is physical. Empathy is emotionally you are feeling the thing. Okay, yeah. Sympathy is basically putting yourself in their situation and then thinking, oh, this is so bad. That's it. Nothing else. Empathy is basically emotionally you're invested in it and then you're feeling the same thing as the other person. Okay, good. Are there any other questions on this? If there are, what is the time? Oh, it's already 1 o'clock. Okay, 10 to 1. Okay, I'll take about 5 more minutes. Okay. What I want to do is just because, this theory is very important, let's take, something that everybody understands and then let's very quickly go through these rasas. Okay, if that's okay. Okay, Karuna Rasa, Radhakrishna is asking Karuna and Shanta Rasa is what's the main difference? Karuna Rasa basically is where, you would have something that is generated by sorrow or something in others. So you're feeling empathetic, right? Let's say let's say Radhakrishna, you're driving on the road and then you see a small guy or a small boy begging on the road. Okay. What is the rasa that comes to you? It's not Shanta rasa. You won't keep quiet and then you'll be like, oh, that's the way of life. And then you don't move on. Okay. You get Karuna rasa, where you are actually empathetic to that particular little child. You keep thinking about your own children or somebody's children. And then you say, oh, if this was my child, it would be so bad. This is a child, he or she should be studying. Why are they begging on the road? This is Karuna rasa. Okay. Shanta rasa, like I said, is the last rasa that was added later, and that is peace, basically. This is the difference is you being in traffic and then looking at a begging child is karuna, it generates karuna rasa. And then when you are watching, let's say, Ramayan, and then you see Valmiki sitting in his, ashram and then, meditating.
Yes, yes.
This is the difference.
Okay.
Right? So that's the difference between Karuna and Shanta. And Shanta is very, very important according to, Abhinavagupta, because, like I said, if you imagine a necklace, all other eight rasas are the pearls or diamonds that are in the necklace, and Shanta is the thread which goes through every rasa. So that's the importance of Shanta.
Okay, sir.
Okay, perfect. Um, okay, very, very quickly, I will take, I could only think of one movie, and then this is a movie called Pushpa. I think it's a blockbuster. I think everybody knows this. That's why I took that movie. So let's take that, Pushpa as a movie, and then see if we can find out all these nine rasas in that very quickly, and then we will end the discussion on rasa. Okay. If you look at Shringara Rasa, you know that this is Allu Arjun, who is the Pushpa, who is Pushpa. He has a girlfriend, and then there is Shringara Rasa being portrayed by them when they are, with each other, hugging each other, kissing each other, whatever, right? Okay. And there is also love where, this has, Allu Arjun has, or Pushpa has with his familial members or family members. And that is where, this particular rasa comes in. Hasya rasa, of course, this is very simple. These are these jokes that happen in between, right? I mean, there's not a section in the movie where all jokes are concentrated in one place, right? I mean, not all jokes will be told at one place. They are spread around the movie, across the movie. So in Pushpa, basically, wherever Allu Arjun and I forgot the side character's name, but they have some jokes around that brings in the Hasya rasa. Now, Karuna Rasa is where, in certain places in the movie, they show struggles with poverty, exploitation, social injustice, where, the heroine is asked to come to somebody who is a master and this kind of stuff. This is where Karuna Rasa comes into picture, because you look at the heroine and think, oh, poor girl. I mean, this is such injustice that's happening. That is where the Karuna Rasa comes into picture. Raudra Rasa, Allu Arjun is great at this. I mean, he becomes this angry man and then he starts kicking everybody on the screen, jumping up and down. This is where the Raudra Rasa comes into picture, the action sequences and, the fights and raw emotions of anger and fury. That is where, the Raudra Rasa is. Veera Rasa, again, of course, Pushpa's character is, brave, fearless individual. He stands up against the system. He stands up against whatever that mafia is, the sandalwood mafia is. He stands up against all of these people. So that's the heroism or the Veera Rasa that's coming out. Bhayanaka Rasa is fear, where there are multiple places in the movie where criminal activities are happening, dangerous situations are there. The sense of danger is always there in the movie. That is your Bhayanaka Rasa, which makes you feel or fear for the character. Bibhatsa is where, there's ugliness, not just in terms of visuality, but then there's also ugliness of corruption, exploitation, moralities are getting decayed. All these feelings you will get where, what the hell is he doing on the screen? I mean, how can he become successful when he is smuggling something? And then how can this person do this? Where there's disgust, that is where you will have this Bibhatsa Rasa. Then Adbhuta Rasa, of course, where Allu Arjun jumps from, I don't know, 300 feet or something and doesn't still break his leg, but then, just very smoothly lands on the land or whatever. You were filled with amazement, thinking, wow, I mean, he's done a really good jump. Or there are beautiful landscapes and, there's beautiful forest that is being portrayed. That is your Adbhuta Rasa. Shantarasa, of course, among the turmoil and the intensity of the whole movie, there are also moments of peace. And then, especially in the quieter scenes where the character's inner thoughts and emotions are given more importance. And then, where he sits and then talks to this police guy in the end. He talks very slowly, very calmly, and whatever. That's where the Rasa is. And then this, like I said, according to Abhinavagupta, goes across to all the rasas. Okay. Okay, let me see. there are other these things. Hasya is laughter. Yes, Sujata, that's right. As you told in American literature, first unit of every block is important to study to know about the subject. Is last chapter also like that? Only first unit of every block is important. I am not sure. Asiya, can you?
No, sir. As you told in American literature, first block unit is important to know about the block and subject. No, as that
Mhm.
only in literary criticism we have to study
Oh,
first
huh.
unit.
I
Is it?
have no idea. I wish I had an answer for you, but I have no idea. I have not even read the literary criticism book, unfortunately. So
Okay, sir. Thank you.
I don't know the contents actually. Yeah, just reach out to your counselor, whoever is assigned to literary criticism, and then they should be able to help you. Okay? I'm so sorry. I can't. I have no idea actually.
Oh,
अच्छा, ठीक है.
thank you.
Okay, Samira, can we end the discussion on rasa theory? Is that okay?
Yes, sir, it's very clear now.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Okay, it's about 1 o'clock, and I promised to leave you all early today because it's a last class. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. If somebody has any specific questions, be it on American literature or the Rasa theory, please ask. If there are no questions, but you want to share something with your classmates about the WhatsApp group or something, I know there are discussions going on between 2 WhatsApp groups or 1 WhatsApp group and whatever. This is your chance of getting everybody together. So use this time to if you need to say anything about the WhatsApp groups to your classmates or batchmates, then do that. And then if you think these classes, I'm talking specifically about American literature classes, if you think these classes could have been better in some way, that also you can let me know. That's it's a very open discussion that we're having. And I know most of you are teachers also, so I hope most of you or all of us have learned something from this course, in addition to getting some knowledge about American literature. Thank you all for your patient listening all through the course and your participation also. Some of you have been really contributing to the discussion, which is how I like the classes. So I really appreciate you doing that. I wish
Excuse
this was
me.
offline actually, but then I wish I could talk to you face to face. I like that model better than online, but your participation made online classes also very engaging. So that is pretty good. Okay. Okay. So thanks for joining the class. I wish
Sir,
you all.
excuse me.
Yes.
Sir, sorry for the interruption.
Not at all. Not at all, Nushi. Go
One
ahead.
last question, sir. Sorry to
Ah,
bother you.
no, no, not at all.
In our assignment, how yesterday a student asked you regarding the common themes of women's literature. So there
Hmm.
is exactly what are the themes? That topic is not mentioned in the textbook. So how to start this answer?
You will have to start this answer across the centuries. Okay. Yesterday, Vishnu was talking about women's suffrage or whatever, right?
Yes, yes.
So if you look at it, if you're looking at a generic answer, then you should start in the previous centuries and then say in the 18th century, the biggest problem, or the starting of the 18th century, the biggest problem was inequality when it comes to women, right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
they were not even given the right to vote. Okay, so you should start from there and then say, that was things like that, like social inequality was the major theme in that time period. Then later, what happened was, even though that social equality was given in words, in action, it didn't happen. Which is why, you see people like George Eliot and others writing with male pseudonyms. We talked about it yesterday, right? Even though people or males or men said, yeah, we are all equal, we are all this, we are all that, even when they did that, in action, did not actually happen, right? So you should write about, themes of inequality in a different sense, like, people started or women started using pseudonyms and then writing about the internal conflicts of themselves. Okay. Initially, they were talking about the societal problems. Then they went internal, and then they talked about their own, internal problems, and then how, family problems and that kind of stuff. Some went on to confessional poetry, like we talked about Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton. Some women authors talked about confessional poetry or confessional works, which basically meant
अच्छा
what they
हुआ
are.
क्लास सुनना मालूम
Um,
क्लास सुनना अच्छा हुआ मैं देखते कुछ
Asia, can you mute yourself, please? Yeah, thank you. So you can start with, how societal problems were the major themes. Then you should talk about how women went internal, and then they talked about their own life problems, and those were the major themes. And then after that, you have to talk about how equality was there in words, but then not in action. That would be one. And then you can talk about, they came back to the societal problems of, the quote unquote feminist movement problems. You can talk about those. Okay. So my suggestion would be go from one century to another century and then show the examiner or whoever is asking you this question how much you understand about the women's problems in each century. Okay. Now you can do this in multiple ways. You can either go and then search for women's problems across centuries on Google, and then you will get a list of problems, and then those will be the themes that you can use. Or you can go century by century. What are the problems experienced by women, American women in 18th century, 19th century, 20th century, and 21st century? And obviously, or very, very predominantly, these themes will come in literature. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. As you just now told about confessions, and also one of the women writers has written about death and suicide as well.
Yes.
So should we mention that?
Yes, of course. Yeah, Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton, both of them have wrote extensively about death and suicide. They both died out and from suicide. So yes, you should mention that also.
Along with their poetry, should we give like as an example?
Oh yes, that will be great actually. If you can give examples, then that would be the best.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you can actually structure it in a way where you say confessional poetry or something like that, and then say, for example, Anne Sexton and Sylvia Plath have been confessional poetesses, and for example, this. You can do that. All right.
Sir, if we go through century after century for the female literature, wouldn't that be out of topic for the American literature, right, sir?
No. I'm talking about. That's why I said search on the problems faced by American women, not across the world. Like Vishnu, like we talked yesterday, right? American women don't go through exactly the same problems that Indian women go through, and Indian women from metros don't go through the same problems that Indian rural women go through. These problems are different, right? So you'll have to be specific about American women going through.
Yes, sir. So
not just
it starts
across
from like 18th century.
You should start from there, and then you should come towards the 21st century. That should be.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Um, Okay, if you don't have any other questions, thank you for joining the class, and I wish you all a good luck for your exams whenever they are going to be conducted. I have no idea. So take good care and have a good rest of the day. I'm sorry I couldn't stop the class earlier, but well, I gave you 8 minutes, so enjoy those 8 minutes.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Wow, Asad, you've finally spoken. Thank you.
We like your teaching, sir. Nice
Thanks.
explanation. Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks
for
a lot,
saying
sir.
that. Yep. Thanks. Bye.